Hi, everyone. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to pose a question: are negative reviews useful? Now, of course, as a consumer guide, many people want to be informed of movies they should or should not see. And we only have so much time to spend watching movies and consuming art in general. What's worth seeing, what's not. You might attach yourself to a reviewer who you have the same similar taste to, so you want to follow that taste. But most of these kind of negative reviews follow a kind of a conventional critical checklist. And really, the negative reviews that you can read or watch on YouTube are reviews that could be succinctly done in about 3 or 4 minutes because they're not meeting the demands of the conventional critical checklist. All this was brought to mind by a movie that's in the theaters now, a movie titled 65 with Adam Driver, which got almost unanimously panned. And they're panned, and I read some reviews, online interviews, and watched some videos, and they pretty much all sound the same. You really don't have to watch or read the whole thing. You can skip down to the final paragraph in a written review. And I've always followed the dictum sort of that the Cahiers du Cinema had in the late 50s, I think, developed that they would not assign a film to a reviewer if the reviewer was not able to engage with the film. So they were not necessarily giving all positive reviews, but they were giving reviews that would make the film sound interesting, because who wants to sit through a bad movie? And what can you really learn from that? I don't know. And it was also, this topic is also relevant to me today because I have purchased two recent films, that recent released films. This from Kino de Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, and from Radiance, A Woman Kills. And I had totally expected to watch these films and then have a discussion of the films. But I had really a great deal of trouble engaging with the films. If I was a reviewer, I would not give it many stars. I'm not a star I don't look at films in order to make instant judgments and assign stars. But if you can't engage with a film, how are you going to talk about it? Especially, I do mostly single movie videos, and I think every movie deserves 10 to 15 minutes, or really it isn't a film worth talking about. And when you work at trying to engage with a film rather than watching a film and making instantaneous judgments as you go along, which is what many reviewers do, I think you can sometimes miss. You can miss a lot of things that way because you're not really engaging with the film. You're wondering why the film isn't being what you want the film to be. And also, I make these videos because in engaging with the films, I get enthusiastic about what's interesting in the film. So, I want to express that enthusiasm to an audience. I feel no compulsion to knock a film or make videos about overrated films or things like that. Both of these films, coincidentally, were made in 1968, and they're about as opposite as two films could possibly be. The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom, big movie stars, big budget, a traditional kind of film that nevertheless reflects some of the mood and the cultural feelings of the late 1960s. The other film, A Woman Kills, is low-budget shoestring. It's a film that also reflects its time in 1968 and in the demonstrations, the student demonstrations of 1968. and its gritty semi-documentary look is certainly very much very much opposite of the the Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. Now, this is meant to be Mrs. Blossom is meant to be a comedy. You're supposed to laugh. Now, when the comedies don't make you laugh, they can be very tiresome after a while. And its premise is kind of interesting because it's a rich, wealthy housewife who is very bored, and she meets this man who comes to fix her sewing machine, and he goes up into the attic and he decides, this is where I want to live. They quickly become lovers. She's resistant to the idea at first, but then he becomes her lover. He's living up in the attic, and her husband doesn't know anything about it. It's actually based on a true life incident. Of course, not with all this intended comedy and irony. And we get big stars. You know, we get Shirley MacLaine, we get Richard Attenborough. Richard Attenborough is very good in this film. James Booth plays the man in the attic. Perhaps he's a bit miscast here. All his different impersonations become maybe a little bit tiresome. And you can't help thinking about Peter Sellers. This was a role, and I don't remember them in the commentary. I don't recall them or Daniel Kramer's commentary whether Peter Sellers was meant for this role. But there's even a moment in a big party where James Booth comes into the party in one of his disguises, and he looks just like Peter Sellers. So from a distance, I thought, "Whoa, is Peter Sellers making a cameo here?" And in fact, in tow was a very beautiful-looking blonde woman, and at the time, Peter Sellers was married to Britt Eklund. But what could be seen to be interesting about the film is its design, its pop art design, its psychedelic design, the candy-colored decor. It's just every scene is just punctuated everywhere you look. So, if the film was a bit tiresome, and I at least found it tiresome, you could always look at what was going on in the set design and the costumes. It very much is a moment of the late '60s, taken to a kind of absurd extremes. And the director, Douglas McGrath, also made another film. I think it comes after The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom. It's called The Magic Christian. Ringo Starr is in The Magic Christian. And whatever the excesses of The Bliss of Mrs. Blossom is, The Magic Christian times that by 3 or 4. It is just one of the most incredibly unusual films. I've only saw it one time at a film society, and I had a similar trouble engaging with the excesses of that film as I did with Mrs. Blossom. But the projectionist at the film society who I was friends with, she thought it was a great film. So you never know about films like this, especially comedy. Because some people find things funny, other people do not. Now, Daniel Kramer does his best to convince me otherwise, but nevertheless, this would be a film I would put in the, well, should I make a video on it? Can I make it sound interesting? The next film. This is from Radiance, and this is the second Radiance release in the U.S., and this is A Woman Kills, directed by Jean-Denis Bonan. It's a curse film, and he made a bunch of short films before this feature film, which is only, I think, 69 minutes. One of those films was banned because I think he has a sequence, a surrealistic sequence, hopefully, of people in a restaurant eating shit, and you see all his, I'm not sure if all his short films are on here, but I think most of them are, that he made before A Woman Kills. So this is, Woman Kills is guerrilla cinema. It's made on a shoestring budget. It's very much influenced by the New Wave, especially Jean-Luc Godard. Breathless in particular, a kind of disembodied narration. And it's a serial killer movie. It's a fictional, very much fictionalized, even though it has sort of a documentary kind of look to it, involving a transgender killer. It has expressionism in it, some of the images. But the movie made no sense to me. It just, it had the narration sounded awkward to me. The final 15 minutes is this chase scene through rubble that seemed interminable. And I really, when I finished watching the movie, I wondered, why would Radiance put this out as one of its first films? Because I would think it would have very little interest. So this is 1968, so this is the time of the student riots, and Jean-Denis Bonin was very active. He was an activist, he was sympathetic, he was part of a film cooperative that was very anti-government, anti-left wing, or anti-right wing. So they shot the fictional film during the day, and then they shot documentary footage of the riots at night. So this is a cursed film, and the reason it's a cursed film is because once the film was made, Bonin went to a fairly famous producer who liked it, and he wanted to, so he financed some of the editing process, but then he said, well, I have to find a distributor to help finance the rest of this project, or it's not worth doing if we can't find a distributor. Of course, they did not find a distributor. And Bonin had a kind of black mark against him because that one film that I described, the scatological scene that I described, gave him a bad reputation. It's not worth risking money. This film, we might risk the money to finish the film, and then it might get banned. So then the film just disappeared. It was considered a lost film, and later on, a film archivist showed the film. He had a copy of the film, and he showed it, and another producer was interested in. So he found very much about value in this film. So he financed Bonin, much to Bonin's surprise. Let's finish the film. So what we are seeing is actually Bonin's final cut. Now, some people find poetry in the film. Now, Sam Dagan and a French film historian do a commentary, and in this commentary, they expressed their love for the film. I had a kind of dissonance between what they were saying about the film and what I was seeing while listening to the commentary. But it only goes to show that my lack of engagement with the film is not going to be everybody's experience and lack of engagement with the film. So we get a commentary in this film, in this Radiance release. We get alternate art for the cover, and we get a great booklet. I mean, this is several essays in this booklet, and they're very good, of the poetry of Bonin and the value of this film as guerrilla filmmaking, as a historical value of it. And I would not deny that this film definitely has, if nothing else, this film has historical value. So do I regret seeing these two films? No, I'm glad I saw them. My opinion is see everything. Don't listen to, if I tell you not to see a film, don't listen to me. See it if you think you have any interest in it. In 65, in the movie 65, if you have interest in seeing Adam Driver in a movie, take a chance, go see it. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to have trouble making videos on what's coming next, because I have the Kino releases of Francois Truffaut. There's 4 films here, never been on Blu-ray before, and also The Bride Wore Black, also from Kino. This has commentaries. The 4 films don't have any special features, the other 4 films in the set. The Bride Wore Black, and then another Truffaut movie, The Story of Adele H., I believe is coming today. So that's up next. I also got, what is it, Lady Whirlwind is coming too from Arrow. So I'll probably be covering that short in the next few weeks. So unbelievably enough, I have no films outside of what I just showed you. That's two Francois Truffaut films. I have no other films in it to be watched. So I have to wait for them coming. I've been waiting for the Criterion flash sale because there's a whole bunch of Criterions I haven't been buying that I wanted to wait to get the 50% off. Hopefully it'll be this Tuesday. So far I've not had word. I've not got my $10 subscription coupon that usually precedes the flash sale. But if it's not this Tuesday, it'll be next Tuesday. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.